What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel, Yak Nasty Fishing, and I'm your guy, Jay Smalls. And today, we're going to be talking about spinnerbaits, and do they still work? Stick around. But before we get started, guys, I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers, all the comments down below on that last video, guys. We are growing. I'm feeling it. I'm loving it. Thanks a lot. Very much so appreciated. Continue to hit that like, subscribe, and comment down below for you guys. And if you're new here, you love to fish, well, you're in the right place. Hit that like, hit subscribe. Tell me where you fish from. The spinnerbait. When I say spinnerbait, everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? For the most part, unless you're new to fishing. And if you're new to fishing, this would be a very good introductory course for you on the spinnerbait. So when I say spinnerbait, most people think something like this right here, right? That's exactly what we're talking about. But at the same time, a lot of people don't know how long the spinnerbait has actually been around. The spinnerbait has been around for over 100 years, okay, as far as being documented. Now, it could be longer than, it could be 125, it could be 145 years, but it is definitely guaranteed to be over 100 years old, this whole spinnerbait concept, all right? So the very first spinnerbait that is really documented legally and all that good stuff, you know, bells and whistles and whatnot, was created by a guy named Jesse Shannon, okay? Now, Jesse Shannon, back in the early 1900s, all right, 1910s, 1915, okay, is when his patented Shannon twin spinner came out, all right? But he didn't get patented until 1919. All right. It was a little it was a very small spinnerbait, right? And it had the two arms coming off the top. If I could find a picture, I would definitely put it up right now. But had two little arms on with very small blades on it. All right. It looked to be small Colorado blades on it. And with the two extended arms, the third arm was down below, right in between there, had a fur skirt or a hair skirt to it, all right, and had a hook right there, just yeah, almost like a very teeny A-rig, right? So that was the very first documented case, right, of the spinnerbait really getting out there, gaining traction, getting a name, and getting a patent, and therefore started manufacturing and selling the spinnerbait, right? Shannon twin spinner. I'm telling you guys, look it up. It's got a little bit of history to it. And from there, I'm going to fast forward to 1951 when the safety pin style, okay, or more inline style spinnerbait like what we see today, all right, 1951, that's when that safety pin style spinnerbait emerged on the scene. So with that being said, the safety pin style bait represented larger bait fish, right? Okay, because it was more inline, just like the baits we see today. And that's what I mean by safety pin style bait, is basically what we see today. That's what's derived from that safety pin style bait, all right? So it mimicked bigger bait fish. And a guy named Steve Porter realized that you can put bigger blades on that thing, and it worked fantastic for largemouth bass. So from there, you know, Steve was putting bigger blades on that thing, all right? And it was getting the job done. It was attracting largemouth bass like crazy, all right? That bigger blade, that bigger flash, that more thump vibration. We'll get into that, all right? But those bigger blades, you know, they mimicked the bigger bait fish. So from there, of course, you know, the tournament scene for bass fishing was ramping up and started to really make progress, all right, on the big scene, right, on the national scene, right? It was really starting to get publicity. All right. And so the spinnerbait made its way into the tournament world with the greats, okay, like Jimmy Houston, Ricky Green, finding success with the lure on the tournament scene. And you know, when you got a pro bass fisherman finding success with a lure, you know that thing is gonna sell. It is going to make the money. So, you know, ever since then, the spinnerbait has been on the scene. It has been a staple in bass fishing, all right? Mainly the safety pin style, but trust me, spinnerbaits, they have many, many different designs out there. But primarily, we're gonna be talking about the one everybody knows, the safety pin style spinnerbait. All right. So ever since then, Jimmy Houston and Ricky Green finding their success, telling others, you know, the word got out, guys. The word, we didn't have internet back then. And it's crazy how the word got out nationwide. All right. It is crazy without the internet. Could you imagine that? I can imagine that. I was born in the 80s. All right. So with the spinnerbait really emerging on the tournament scene like it was, it really became a staple for every angler out there that fishes for bass. Every angler out there knows something about spinnerbait theory for the most part. All right. It is a staple. It stays on the boat, it stays on the yak. You can throw it from the bank. And spinnerbait is something serious. So, as I mentioned earlier, you know, Mr. Porter, Mr. Steve Porter realized that, hey, you can put bigger blades on here, which means it opened up other people's minds, right? It caused innovation. It caused people to start cutting different shaped blades, different size blades, started playing with it. Innovation took over. And when you got innovation, dude, you got competition. When you have that combination set up, you can believe the right blades were created. All right. So the main three blades we're going to talk about are going to be the willow blade, the Colorado blade, and the Indiana blade. All right. So starting off with the willow blade, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's also called willow leaf blade. All right, because it's shaped like a willow leaf. I got some out right here. So yeah, it's shaped like a willow leaf, guys. The willow blade has a very fast retrieve, the least amount of vibration out of the three major blade styles that we're going to talk about today. And it just puts off a lot of flash. It's good for clear water. All right. It's good for slightly stained water. And it's also good for stained water. All right. The willow leaf is my favorite blade to use. You're always going to see me using a willow leaf, all right? And I always keep it on deck. I tend to throw that thing and I tend to work it fairly quick, all right? And yeah, the willow blade is a very awesome blade. It's a very common blade. You can find that in any tackle shop, all right? You got the dual willows, you'll have single willows. That blade is a very common blade because you can pretty much fish that blade anywhere. Okay, guys? Almost anywhere. Yeah, yeah. So the next blade we're going to talk about is going to be the Colorado blade. The Colorado blade is a round blade. I don't have one here, but it's round like this, all right, but more rounded. Okay, we'll get to this in a minute, but it has that spoon-like scoop to it, a very deep scoop. All right, wide blade. That Colorado blade makes a lot of noise. It has a lot of thump to it, a lot of vibration, less flash than your willow blade. Okay, but it does have some flash to it, but it's about the thump when you're throwing that Colorado blade. When you're in that murky water, that stained water, just after that storm comes through, after that wind whips up and turns out water, all right, you know how it gets murky, it gets stained. Man, the fish have a hard time finding that bait. So you throw that lure out there with that Colorado, it makes it a lot easier for those fish to find your bait because it's a homing beacon. Okay, it's saying, come eat me. That thump, when you feel that thump on the tip of that rod, you can hear it. If you're in a very quiet area or under a very small bridge, you can hear it when you reel it back. It has a slower retrieve, all right? It catches a lot of water, has a lot of drag in that water, guys, so it's a slower retrieve, but that's what you want when you're trying to get fish to bite it in murky, stained water, all right, guys? So definitely remember that Colorado blade has a lot of thump, all right? And the last blade is going to be that Indiana blade, which is the combination of the two blades, combination of a willow blade and Colorado blade. So it's also called a teardrop blade, which is pretty much the one I showed you right here. All right, yeah, that right there's your Indiana blade. Yeah, we'll grab it right here. See that shape to it. All right, it has that little point, that teardrop shape to it. That has a nice cup to it as well. It catches water. Very good vibration thump to it. All right, so it has that noise, that little bit of thump to it, but it also puts off flash. Okay, more flash than that Colorado blade. So it's a very good hybrid between both blades. I have Indiana blades on a lot of my spinners. I tend to mix it willow and Indiana on a dual blade spinner. And if I have a single blade spinner, I do like or prefer the willow, but in really, really murky stain water, single blade Colorado does the trick, guys. So yeah, that's the three major blade styles. Now they also have Oklahoma blade, which is, I think I got one here. Yep, that's a Hildebrandt #4, which is like a turtle shell type blade. So this right here is an Oklahoma blade that puts off flash. It has thump vibration to it, guys. This blade is a really good blade, but you don't hear about it a lot, all right? You just don't. And then you have a French blade, which is mainly on your inline spinners. So we're not really going to talk about those today. We're just going to focus on the main three, the willow, the Colorado, and the Indiana, all right? And, you know, the other blades we'll get into later. If we get into a deep dive later on, let me know if you want to see a deep dive into spinner baits, the hardware, and all that good stuff, guys. But we're just not going to go down that rabbit hole in this particular video, all right, guys? Now that we've gone through, you know, the history and some overview of the spinnerbait, guys, let's get into the juice, the reason why you're here, the when, the where, and the how of spinnerbait fishing, spinnerbait theory, depending on how you want to look at it, all right? I love spinnerbait theory. I love throwing a spinnerbait. I do. I don't do it as much as I used to. I get out there and I experiment a whole lot. But the last time I did finesse with a spinnerbait, you seen it on the Classic Pokemon Tournament 2024. Yeah, so we're about to get into the Classic 2025 in the next few weeks. So yeah, and it's on that Pocomoke River, guys. So anyway, enough of the tangent. Let's get into the when. All right, when is it a good time to fish with a spinnerbait? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. The spinnerbait really excels in the spring and the fall. Okay, guys, the spring and the fall, the spinnerbait really excels. So right now, the spinnerbait is a very good lure to use right now, okay? So it's a very good fall transition bait, all right? It gets those fish going. Those fish are already out hunting the transition. They know what's going on. These temperatures, you know, starting to fall a little bit overnight. Days starting to get shorter. These fish are starting to hunt openly. And yeah, man, you can catch them moving along with the spinnerbait. All right, guys. So spring and fall, really good times. I can fish it all year long. The colder months, I don't really try it. I've never really tried it in the wintertime. I just take it off when the temperature starts to drop, you know, somewhere around 50, 40 degrees, I kind of don't throw a spinnerbait. I'm doing something else that really catches those fish, all right? And we'll get into that later on in the year, of course. So, yeah, I don't throw a spinnerbait in the wintertime, but spring, summer, fall, have you a spinnerbait tied on, guys. It is fantastic, all right? So that's when you throw it. 3/4 of the year, you can throw a spinnerbait. So that's when you can throw it. Just to keep it real simple, no need to complicate it, all right? Now, where do we throw this spinnerbait? Well, I like to throw it in shallow cover, all right? Shallow cover is anything from 0 to 10 feet, okay, guys? I like throwing that spinnerbait up close to that structure, all right, that dock. If you got a dock right there, throw it up through that dock. You can hit both sides. You can hit the front of that dock, underneath that dock, very quick, very efficiently, all right? That lay down, you can hit both sides of that lay down, fish it in front of the lay down, throw it in between the branches a little bit. You can work that lay down, guys. Stumps, very good around stumps. You just bump that wood, you bump that tree, okay? That submerged cover, you will get bit, guys. So all that shallow cover, pad edges. Pad edges are a really good place to throw a spinnerbait, all right? Looks like a group of bait fish right there, and dude, it gets bit, all right? And the spinnerbait, man, it just has that juice. It has that bait fish presence, right? So when I say bait fish presence, I mean the ability to look like bait fish or have the illusion of more than one bait fish, right? Like a small pack of bait that got away from the main school and now they're just an easy target, right? So in a singular version of that, you just throw like a jig head minnow that has that bait fish presence, all right? So it's just something about the spinnerbait, man. It attracts some nice fish, man. I love fishing it on rivers, ponds, lakes, okay? You can fish it from the boat, the kayak, the bank. You can fish it anywhere, okay? Well, almost anywhere. You don't want to go too far with it. Not in the scum ponds and not the ponds with a whole bunch of junk and algae and where your blades will just get wrapped up in that. Kind of use a little bit of common sense with it. Don't throw it in the junk, okay? But yeah, where you can get that thing presented just right on that shallow cover. So, like I was saying with that bait fish presence, it works very well in fisheries where bass eat bait fish, okay? Your shad, all right? Your perch, your trout, those fisheries, all right? Threadfin shad, stuff like that. You got minnows in there. Yeah, yeah, guys. That's pretty much where you want to throw the spinnerbait, all right? I couldn't even make it any more simpler than that. All right. So if you're new to the spinnerbait, throw that spinnerbait. It is an awesome bite. Now, how do we work that spinnerbait? If you ever really looked at bait fish in the water, all right, you ever just stand on the bank and look at the bait fish and see how they move along the bank, how they do their thing? They don't move in just a steady straight, I'm going there right now. This is where I'm going, dude. No, they don't. They don't do that. Okay, they'll move a little bit. Okay, they don't just go a steady pace. All right, they come in, then they'll move quick, and they'll, move erratically. Okay, you ever seen that? Now pay attention to how we're going to fish our spinnerbait. Pretend you're the bait fish. Okay, put yourself in the frame of mind that you're that bait fish swimming by you as you're standing on the bank watching them swim along, right? Or remember, you getting on the boat, you look down, you seen some bait fish just swim past you. Pay attention to the movements of that bait fish because that's how you're going to work your reel and your rod. All right, you're going to throw that thing out there, and when you're reeling it, give it a couple quick turns, all right? Right? That flexes that wire, that makes that skirt move, okay, and fluff out a little bit. So it has that appearance of scurrying bait fish, all right? And when you do a quick rip, especially with the willow blades, because you can move those faster, right? With that quick whip, all right? It almost causes that reaction strike because it looks like it's bait fish trying to get away. And you know, bass are just hardwired. If it looks like if it's gonna run, well, they're gonna bite. All right. So you can always give it that. Okay. You lift your rod tip up, you can bring it down, all right, to cause that depth change in your bait, guys. All right. That's how you're gonna work your spinnerbait. Put yourself in mind as, you know, a teeny mini school of bait fish. And you're just trying to get away, right? Frantically. You bring it up, bring it down, let it fall. Okay. You can also work those willow blades specifically subsurface, right at the surface of the water. You just bring that thing back pretty quick, kill it for just a second, bring it back real quick, subsurface, and then it does that change, that slight pause, and you can get bit, guys. All right. When you're up against those trees, laydowns, and stumps, don't be afraid to bump up across that wood. All right. That is a real good attractant for the fish. I'm going to tell you now, you tap that wood, a lot of times you will get a strike right after that. And normally it's a pretty aggressive strike, guys. So that is the basics on how I work a spinnerbait. Okay. And with the spinnerbait, I like to use a Kitech, all right? So for these half ounce size spinner baits, I like to throw a 3-inch swimmer on there, okay? 3.3, something in that size range. I think 4 is too big. You get too many short strikes with that 4-inch bait, okay? I tried it and I just kept coming back with bait without a tail. So I shortened that thing up and guys, it made all the difference. So I like to use on a regular old spinner like this here, a 3.3, 3-inch swim bait. I like to go with a Kitech, okay? A Saucy Swimmer by Guggen, right? Saucy Swimmers right here, 3.3 is what that was. This the 2.8. I use that for my smaller spinner baits like this here. Look at that. Very small, okay? Because sometimes you got to downsize to get those bites, guys. So always keep that in mind. And when I'm feeling real frisky, I got the 4-inchers out, but I like to use, like I said, a 3-inch. When I'm moving that bait along real quick, Crush City Mayor works perfectly. It has that just perfect action, has that little side to side little quiver to it. It's just crazy when you're working it with those blades. It's a little bit different action than when you put it on a jig head or something like that, guys. So I do love the action of the 3-inch Mayor on those spinner baits as well when I'm moving those things pretty quick. All right, guys. Now, when I'm using a Colorado blade, normally it's singular, I will put a grub on the back of that bait. All right. Straight up old school. I'll put a grub on the back of it. All right. I've put a fluke on there. It does work. When in doubt, I did pull that fluke out and it did do the trick. So I used a fluke before. I've used a crawl, okay, on the back of a spinner. When I had nothing else to use, I had a green pumpkin crawl. I turned that thing on sideways. All right. I didn't pull that plastic piece in between the claws, keeping them together. Keep that thing connected. Keep the pinchers connected. Keep them connected so it'll move like one tail with just a little flutter to it. I have a fly in my office and it's bugging me, killing me. Yeah. So keep that tail together, keep that thing going like that, and it has a more natural presentation in the water versus having those claws loose. That'll create more drag, but that works perfect for your Colorado bladed baits. Okay, guys, keep that in mind. So, guys, I hope you learned something here. hit that like, hit subscribe. If there's something else you want to learn about a spinnerbait, or if you want that deep dive into spinnerbaits, because that'll be a long video, hit that like, hit subscribe, leave the comment down below. And yeah, do you fish a spinnerbait? Do you like a spinnerbait? Let me know down below. I think a spinnerbait's awesome. Oh, almost forgot. Almost forgot. The equipment I'm throwing the spinnerbait on, okay? I almost left that out, right? When I'm in near heavy cover, okay, guys, I'm using a 7-foot heavy, okay, heavy power rod, extra fast tip. All right, that's when I'm around some heavier cover. I suspect bigger fish in the area. That's the rod I'm using, okay? And I have that, of course, paired up with this Cast King here, all right? And that is a 6:5 to 1 gear ratio on that one there, okay? So I like something in the 6s or the low 7s, okay? I don't want it too fast, all right, guys? But that's what I'm using when I'm around that heavier cover, something a fish could kind of drag me into, all right, if I don't set that hook quick and get him out of there, all right, guys? And just the everyday spinning rod setup, okay? 7-foot, medium heavy, fast action tip. All right, this is the Lose Hank Parker rod right here. And that is on a Cast King Brutus. All right, and that's a fast action reel, 7.2 to 1, I think. What is it? Yeah, 7.2 to 1 reel. All right, pretty quick. It'll get that fish out of the junk if you're in the deeper cover. But I love using this setup for the spinnerbait, because I got a jig on here, just throw myself on. I love using this setup for my spinner baits, okay? When I'm just going down the river, I'm kind of drifting along a little bit, and I'm hitting those laydowns. This gets the bait in there, gets the bait out of there, and I don't have any issues getting those fish back quick, okay, guys? So, yeah, guys. Get that 7-foot, medium heavy, fast action tip there, fast tip. And that'll do the trick, okay, guys? That really will do the trick all by itself. I do go with the heavy when I'm really into some stuff and I really want to get that fish in, okay, guys? Of course, I want to get it in every time, but you know what I mean. So, guys, that's it for the spinner bait. And yeah, I hope you hit the like, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below and tell me what you do with a spinnerbait, guys. And yeah, it's my time. So tight lines and all that good stuff everybody says. Peace.